Coming up, I ride a horse.
A blown up horse.
There's laughter. And the engine failed to proceed in a very impressive way.
This is truly fascinating. It's time. It's time. This is my dream car, 2011 E92 M3 with a 6-speed manual. Currently, it has a Bluetooth crankshaft. The crankshaft has dance moves, you know? The engine in this thing, it's 128% kaput, blown up. And in this episode, we're gonna remove it, take it apart, and see what exactly happened. This white thing over there, well, that is a donor car because I'm 99% sure that the block on this engine is not going to be usable. But we're gonna talk more about that one when the time comes. Right now, I'm gonna go get a winch and drag this thing inside. There's the beautiful engine. Hey now. Should I try? Maybe it'll start. No? So close. Stop! It'll stick. Ow! Service position achieved. Let the teardown commence. It'll be easier if you remove the intake plenum as well. So is that. Did I do that? I don't remember. Yep, all those are loose. All right, at this point we can jump underneath, drain the oil and coolant. Yep, has coolant. Jiggle, jiggle. The rotors are really rusty from sitting, and they have a big lip. Oh no, oil leaks. Oh, and a zip tie. Professionally fixed. So as I'm working on the car, removing stuff, whatever I see that needs to be replaced, I'm putting it in the list, and then when the reassembly time comes, I can order all of that. For example, these two bolts here are rusty. There are two brackets that hold some wires and the brake hose there that's rusty. I need to buy that. This, for example, here needs to be renewed. You know, small things to make the car pretty. What? Extra bolt. That seems weird. Is it stripped? Oh yeah, that's stripped. Oh my. What did I tell you? Strip threads. Someone over torqued this drain plug, and when I loosened it, I took out the threads from the oil pan. And now the coolant. What do we have? What? Looks like water, man. Oh, there is some coolant in there. Maybe it's that waterless thing they have in the US. I forgot what it's called. It doesn't have, it's transparent, but it's coolant. Okay. Evans? Something like that? I don't know. Now you're gonna drop the exhaust. And by the way, I'm not going in any particular order. Let's unplug O2 sensors. It's not really necessary to mark these cables because the length of the cable goes exactly where it needs to go. So it'll be difficult to mix them up, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Silicone spray. One man versus an exhaust. Okay, relax. Oh. Well, there we go. Oh yeah, who's gonna balance this, man? Heat shields. I'm gonna mark the position of the center shaft bearing. There we go. Back in the engine bay, let's start disconnecting stuff here. Ouch. Coolant hose here. Oil cooler lines. So the oil cooler lines as well as the oil cooler, we can't reuse any of that because it's going to have metal shavings. I've successfully forgot to check whether there's Freon in the AC system, and I'm happy to report that there is, and I don't have a way to safely discharge the system, and you can't release this into the air because it's hazardous and illegal. So I'm gonna try and unbolt the compressor, remove this connector here, and see if I can swing it over the engine and leave it in the engine bay. That way I don't have to disconnect any of the lines. I can reach the third bolt here. All right. We'll come back to that a bit later. We need to remove the wiring harness and everything in the back first. Secondary air crap. Bunch of lines here. Fuel line. Plug the line. Can actually unbolt the steering column. Remove the bolt. Steering column bolt removed. Oh, nice. Steering column removed and my lamp went. Starter cable. Five gazillion cables. Goes underneath. Put the cover back on. Now we should have enough space. You know what? I'm gonna wear safety goggles because if one of the lines explodes, at least it doesn't take my eyes out. Let me remove the power steering pulley. The plastic power steering pulley is breaking. What? It's all rusty. This is ridiculous. garbage plastic. Very close to coming out. Get the bolts. There you go. It's doable. Would I recommend it? No. Get the AC system discharged first. That's more or less everything that I can see that we need to unbolt and remove here. Now we're gonna go underneath and prep it further for dropping the engine. Here's the plan. We're going to drop the complete suspension along with the subframe, because once we take the engine out, I need to put the subframe back in and make sure that the car can roll off the lift, because obviously I need to use the lift and drop the engine from the donor car. So I'm gonna disconnect all of the connectors here, unbolt the caliper, attach it to the chassis of the car, and then we just have 3 bolts that hold the strut to the top strut tower, and then all of this is going to come down together with the subframe. Let's unplug the wheel speed sensor. Oh, that sway bar link is shot. So now that can clear the brake line. We need to disconnect the connector that goes to the steering rack. Headlight leveling sensor as well. Ooh, we need new wheel bearings as well. Just did the same on the other side, but listen to this wheel bearing here. That is shot. We have a ground cable to disconnect here. All right. Now I need to disconnect the clutch slave cylinder. The manual transmission in this car has an oil cooler in the front, which is pretty cool, but this means we need to unbolt the cooler lines here. That transmission oil does not look good. Yep, there's one. So that's disconnected. Now you can remove this cover here to expose the subframe bolt. Now we need to unhook the shifter linkage. Clip there. Good. So that's disconnected. Now we can unbolt the struts. This is the EDC connector. Time to break out the hydraulic table. I think we're ready to start lowering the subframe, the transmission, the engine, the whole lot, the drivetrain. Here's what we have. The subframe is supported in the front, on the sides as well. I put some stuff in the middle, and then transmission cross member is supported in the back. We have 8 subframe bolts in total, and then 4 bolts to remove the cross member. Before we start undoing the bolts, we need to support the car in the back. We are removing a massive amount of weight from the front of the car, and in theory it could tip over like that. Not really, because it's nice and leveled on the lift, but it's better to be safe than sorry. 2 in the front first. Cross member bolts are out. Good. Steering column cleared. I missed one power steering line. Oh! Might hit my thing here. Okay. That's it. It's all the way down. The S65 drivetrain is out. That really wasn't that bad. Good. Feeling very manly now. Look at this. I can ride it like a horse. A blown up horse. All right, time to move it over there. But first I need to clean up whatever is There's stuff there. I've cleaned up a little bit. Now let's see if I can hit this gap at 40 miles per hour and not crash. Ow! As long as I don't crash an Alpina, it'll be fine. Bungee cords. Hook it up there. And like that. Hey now! First thing we were going to do is remove the wiring harness completely. Didn't they replace rod bearings on this car? And they didn't do engine mounts? Or level sensor? Right. You gotta be very careful with these connectors. They are very brittle. Let's unbolt the power steering line from the power steering pump. Engine mount bolts. Gonna go grab the apple picker. Roll out the table. The engine mount. Broken. Spectacular! Now I gotta unbolt the transmission. The manual transmission. Now I'm gonna remove the pressure plate. And this one's stripped. There it is. So the pressure plate, look at that tiny clutch, are actually in good condition because this was replaced not long ago. I have service records for this. Yeah, look at that. It looks rather good. To unbolt the flywheel, you need a special deep Torx bit. I locked the crank in the front. Oh my God. It's the flywheel out and the rear main was leaking. See oil there? The rear main was leaking. And with that, let's move this party outside. And this suddenly turned into an unboxing video. Had to buy another engine stand. What was I saying? This is the fancy one with gears and whatnot. Bacco. Oh. And now it's stuck. Off to a great start. What the? After wasting quite a lot of time, the fish stand is now operational. Had to lube up the gears and everything inside and here as well. Let's get this thing on the fish stand. Let's see if this is gonna hold the engine. Yeah, gonna be honest with you, I don't like this engine stand. The engine is not sitting straight. The engine is tilted that way, which is not something that happens on the other, with the other engine stand. Oh well, I don't have another one at the moment, so you're gonna have to run with this. The old engine stand is better, and I'm kind of regretting getting this one. Okay, so look at this. That's the crankshaft, and as you can see, it's sitting offset a bit to the right. It's not in the middle. And then if you go around back, here it's sitting straight. This means Well, that's the only logical explanation that I have right now, is that the crankshaft is broken. And then this is just wobbling all over the place. Plus we have RTV and silicone here, which I don't really understand. If this was done prior to the engine blowing up or after, and they were just trying to stop oil from leaking everywhere. The intake valves look great. It's the starter, throttle actuators, thermostat housing. Man, these are light. They weigh absolutely nothing. It's pretty much the same thing that I did for E31, the headers that Swara Performance made from Ukraine. This is really nice. I like it. Engine support arm. Let's pop the valve covers off. Very expensive ignition coils. Oh wow, that is very clean. That is one clean engine. The camshafts are in great condition. Another mint head. We have service records that show that the car had regular oil changes, and now we have definitive proof as well. That is one clean engine. Oil filter housing removed. All right, I think now we're gonna flip it over and remove the oil pan, and we can finally look inside of the engine from the bottom. Here we go, time to crack open this coffin. All right, what do we have? What do we have? The crankshaft is broken. That is fabulous. How does that happen? The crankshaft is actually broken. That is fantastic. I mean, it's bad for my wallet, but it's fantastic to see. Everything looks fine there. Here as well. Nothing interesting to report here. And then snap! Broken crankshaft. That is fantastically hilarious. How does a crankshaft break? It is a solid piece of forged steel. I think it must have spun a rod bearing or a main bearing, and it got really, really hot, and then it went boop. It's wireless now. There's also a lot of crap in the oil pickup there and here as well. So let's take it apart further and see what we can see. Let's remove the oil pickup tube. Oops! I ruined the engine. This is the main oil pump. This is the oil scavenger pump. So the intermediate shaft, oh yeah, the main bearing is wiped out. I don't know if you can see that, but this is the first main bearing and it spun. And it got really, really hot in here and it split the crankshaft as well. So the block is officially garbage, garbaggio, trash, not usable. Now we're gonna proceed and strip the engine completely, remove the heads, hopefully they're still usable, get the pistons out and seed the carnage a bit better. Let's get the throttle actuators out. water pump. Original part, 2011. Now we're going to remove Vanos gears. Take the spark plugs out. Now I can set the engine at TDC, top dead center. So the thing won't fit. Difficult to put engine at TDC when the crank is broken. First, we're going to remove Vanos gears on bank 2, which are cylinders 5 to 8. And the engine is at TDC when you have on the intake cam E2 pointing up and A2 on the exhaust cam pointing up. So now we're going to get our timing tools on there. These are torqued to 10 Nm, but now it really doesn't matter. Now I need to align gear wheels on exhaust Vanos unit with this special tool that comes with the timing kit. The exhaust Vanos unit is pre-tensioned with a spring inside. That's why we had to line up these wheels here. And now we can use M5 screw that's not longer than 10 millimeters. Screw it in and that'll hold the tension and we can safely remove the Vanos units. The Vanos bolts are counterclockwise thread, so to undo them we're gonna do that clockwise. Now we can release the timing chain tensioner. Now I need to remove this plug here. Now we have another special tool. On bank 1, cylinders 1 to 4, it's a top dead center when you have E1 and A1 pointing up on the intake side and exhaust cam. Now we're going to remove the cams so we can access cylinder head bolts and remove the head. First we're going to start with the intake side. Camshaft caps, we're going to release them half a turn from outside to in. In fantastic condition. Same deal here. Get the plug out and get this thing out with a special tool. 2 screws in here. Now we're going to release cylinder head bolts from 10 to 1. The head gasket was good, it wasn't blown. Here you can see the cylinders, some light scoring marks, not that it matters because the block is not usable. This camshaft really stinks. Let's see. Do we have any? Oh! The crown on this piston, it's missing. Where did that go though? More entertaining carnage here. Cylinder number 5 has scoring marks. 6 as well. 7, the piston, as you can see, the piece of it is missing. There's some pitting there as well. 8 looks decent. The heads, I believe they're usable, but they would need to go to a machine shop to be taken apart and inspected further. But look at this, the intake ports, ported from the factory. These are very good flowing heads. This engine has 145,000 miles and the rod bearings were done at 82,000 miles and they used VPC rod bearings and ARP rod bolts. And as you can see, the things got a bit hot in this area here. The crank is discolored as well as the rod cap. In fact, this rod bearing spun as well. So rod bearing went dancing, the main bearing went dancing, and the things got extremely hot, and then the crank broke, which makes for one fabulous catastrophe. Anyway, let's take the pistons out. Hello! That's what's left of the rod bearing. Oof! Look at that! And that's what a spun rod bearing looks like. That's fun. Oh, this one spun as well. Of course it did. Careful, don't damage the crankshaft, okay? Another good looking bearing. Maybe we can use some JB weld to fix this. Piston is in terrible condition as well. They actually don't look that bad. Honestly, not too bad at all. Some were, but this is not terrible. If these were completely original BMW bearings, they would look about 10 times worse. Obviously, rod bearings on cylinder number 1 and 5, they went dancing, but I'm assuming that's because the main bearings failed first and then broke the crank and took the rod bearings with them as well. And then obviously the piston is you know, it's good. There is a specific sequence in which you need to remove the bed plate bolts in order to remove the crankshaft safely, but I'm thinking that doesn't really apply to our case. So we're just gonna remove them randomly. And then we have a bunch of T45 bolts on the side. And that's number 1 main bearing gone. Good news, we can turn this engine into a V6. This is our Bluetooth crankshaft. The force that it takes to break this like that is monumental. The main bearings on journal number 1 failed. Things got really hot and then carnage happened. Unfortunately, when main bearings go, you can throw away this block. You can see that it's all deformed here. And you can see main bearing number 2 has some wear. 3, not too bad, but they're all actually showing some wear. And from what I read online, it's always main bearing number 1 that fails. Something to do with oil lubrication. And once that happens, yeah, it's gonna cost you a lot of money to fix it. Basically, you need a different engine. The added bonus of having spun main bearings is that the block cracks as well. You can see a hairline crack here, on the side here as well, and it goes through the middle of the journal. So if you needed further proof that this is now a Cerveza table, there it is. And here's the bed plate. That's deformed and really sharp. And you can see the wear here on the main bearings. Really bad. So unfortunately, yet another thing that you have to do on a S65 engine if you want to prolong its life. This is truly fascinating. I'm holding what used to be a one-piece steel forged crankshaft, and here it is in 2 pieces. I've never seen such catastrophic engine failure in my life. I can't imagine how this would feel if you were behind the wheel. Thank God it was a manual and you can decouple the engine from the transmission. The cause of death of this engine is, like we guessed, main bearing failure, and unfortunately that's another thing to look out for on the S65 engine. Main bearing failure is not as common as rod bearings, but it happens. I've seen many cases of spun main bearings on S65 engine. It's almost always the first one. I just saw the other day in S65 and S85 Facebook group that someone did the rod bearings and then 2,000 kilometers later the main bearing spun and the engine it's trash. You can't fix it. You can't save the block, which is very, very bad for your wallet. Funnily enough, S85 engine, the one in Project Raleigh, E60 M5, doesn't have issues with main bearings. At least I've never seen a case of failed main bearings on that engine. So you're not safe if you just do the rod bearings. If you have a high mileage S65 engine, you might want to consider doing this, because when it goes boom, it's bad. You need a new block. Anyway, as bad as this is, we still have plenty of good, useful parts from this engine. And thankfully, I bought a donor car that's sitting right over there. I'll tell you more about that one in the next episode, but in short, it has 106,000 miles. I got it from Ireland, from a really nice subscriber, and the plan is to remove that engine and strip it down completely, rebuild it from ground up, because I also want to do the main bearings. I don't want to just do the rod bearings, put it in the car, and I don't know, just live in fear that the main bearings are gonna go at some point as well. And with that, I'm off to vacation, going to Italy with my better half. I need to relax a little bit. I've been working like crazy lately and just need to take a beat. And then once we come back, we're gonna go strong. Finish Alpina, do the last episode, take apart the donor engine. The heads are gonna be back for the E31, and we're also going to finish Project Rottweil E39 Touring. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please consider subscribing. A lot more entertaining and, you know, fascinating content coming your way. Till next time.